I'm flying over on the 5th, and then we're like right into it. We don't have a lot of practice time allocated, so I'm thankful we had our event in November where we did like a 4 nations with Spain. I'm going to forget now. Spain, Poland, and Great Britain. So we did that in Spain, November. So I was able to build some culture. I think we had 5 practices, played 3 games. So that was sort of the training camp. And I guess we just go into Worlds and hope what we've done so far is enough. There's a couple things that we did really well and a couple things that we really struggled with because I only had, those short amount of time with the team to build our style of play. So we definitely were very weak at defending pucks coming off the wall. So that would be the one thing that we really, we got beat off the wall, power play, penalty kill, 5-on-5, you name it. Like we were either way too aggressive or didn't know who our player was. So same thing out of the corner behind the net. Maybe I took for granted that these players sort of had some basic understanding of that. But clearly they had no understanding of that, at least not to compete with those teams. And all those teams are in higher groups than us. So I think Poland's 2 groups higher than us at Worlds, and Great Britain and Spain might be 1 group higher. So obviously when we get to Bulgaria, the teams will be more our level. So they definitely took advantage of the skill gap and the experience gap, in the way that they were attacking us. But, we played well with the puck. We had a ton of poise. We had a lot of possession, really good breakouts. We weren't throwing pucks away, no panic plays. We got 2 good goalies, Sami, so that's always good.
Yeah, always helps.
Our older goalies, I don't know if you know Andrea. I think you do know her. She's tall, redhead. She'd be she's 17. This is her last year of eligibility at this
young.
level. Yeah, this is the under 18 team.
The last time we had Icelandic goalies at my goalie school would have been at least probably pre-pandemic, and they were all like older than teenagers, like they were in their 20s.
Yeah, she's quite good. And then we had this young kid who actually none of us had ever seen her play. You can imagine. She lives in Sweden. She's 14, 2009, and they're moving back to Iceland, but no one had ever seen her play. So we basically had to call the goalie coach because whatever team she's on, she's not the starter for whatever reason. So we had no footage. So we had to call the goalie coach and be like, what do you think? Because our other goalie options were not options that I was comfortable with. I'm like, we can't go to these events with one goalie. And she got in on one of the games. She did really well, little kid, but she's going to be really, really good. And actually, we had 3 or 4 14-year-olds, and they're some of the best skilled players on the team. So it'll be interesting to see how we do it at the World. Because I really don't know the competition. I don't know what the level of everybody else is. But we have the classic problem in girls hockey. We have good goaltending, 5 very good defensemen, and about not enough good forwards.
Nobody that can put the puck in the net.
Well, maybe a couple, but at that kind of event with 320s and overtimes, and you want to be able to go 3-4 lines, right? And we don't have a lot of depth yet. But it's lots of fun. The girls loved it. I got some great feedback. My assistant coaches are both, they both coach 2 of the club teams. There's only 3 clubs in Iceland, and they're each coaching in different clubs. So I said the girls were really, enjoying the experience. And
is it one of them Bjornen? Is that right? Bjornen? The Bears?
No. God, what are they?
What's the one on the second floor?
There's 2 in Reykjavik, and I think that's one of them. The bear one is the black team. I only know them by their colors. Isn't that bad? Yeah, the black team, the blue yellow? Team. No, there's black and yellow, blue team in Reykjavik, and then the red team in Akureyri. So, and that's the strongest team that has the most national team players on it. So it's a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it. It's as I was standing there on the bench doing that, I was like, oh, I used to do this a lot. Kind of higher level hockey and line matching and face off strategies. As you know, Sami, it's not a lot of that's happening at U9. but it's a kind of a cool contrast actually to go between the two. And there's actually a lot of similarities between those levels, and obviously some huge differences. But it's been fun so far, and hopefully we can have a strong showing at Worlds. But I really don't know. It's going to be short-term competition, trial by fire. Hopefully some of those Ds will get some Bobby Orr styles and go score some goals for us.
So Wally, can I start with the first subject?
Sure, go ahead, get into it.
So because my daughter has a Christmas concert today that I have to go to at noon, so I can't stay too long, but there's a Rivalry Series game tonight. So there's 2 Rivalry Series matches tonight and Saturday. And I wanted to, obviously Tom and Wally, you guys have some insights on Hockey Canada, but Kim, I wanted to see if you had any insights on your thoughts maybe so far, or maybe what Canada needs to do. Have you watched the games? Any and all of information you can give me to make me sound smart.
Oh boy, Sami, we're in trouble. I haven't been watching a lot, to be honest with you. I think it'll be interesting. I wonder if you'll see anything different now that these players have been in training camp with each other, and it's an interesting timing, with the Pro League starting here shortly, and these players
I'm actually really interested in the February series, because then the coaches will have seen the players and maybe picked different people.
Yeah.
The new ones right now that have come in are all NCAA.
Yeah, you know what? I was actually at Clarkson not too long ago. I watched 2 games there, and they picked up a couple players from Clarkson who I like.
Tchaikovsky, I think, was one.
I remember coaching against her in minor hockey and just being like, I don't know what to do. Just hope she's not on the ice. I don't know. And they picked up Gosling, the other Gosling, the cousin, who I coached against as well, who's pretty special. So. I haven't watched a ton of it, but I'm just so intrigued. The timing of all of this is so interesting with the league starting, and there's so much. They sold out the tickets this morning for the Toronto game, the New Year's game there against New York, and so I just think there's a lot of buzz, and I hope as always the games will live up to that standard. But I'm always like you, Sami, I'm always fascinated who the line combinations are going to be, who's going to be with who. The D pairings always seem to be a little bit more solid, at least when you look at like the top 4. Who's going to get the start in net? I think the U.S. finally has a true starter, which if they keep her in the net.
Yeah, who has a ton of confidence.
Yeah, but they haven't, I think we've talked about this before, they've kind of had a rotating starting goalie for a number of years. They couldn't quite figure out who was the one, and I think she might be it. And that could be the difference maker. Like Davian was the difference maker, in a couple of the tournaments. I think this kid might be for the U.S., but I don't know.
Aaron Frankel.
Are there any?
Played the second game of the last series, but Abby Levy, who is the New York goalie, has not seen a game yet. But she's 6'1". Like, I'm hopeful that we get to see her play. It would be really fun to see her play.
Are there any key injuries right now that you know of?
For the U.S. or for Canada or anybody?
For anybody.
So the U.S., no, although their roster for tonight hasn't come out. And then for Canada, Mashmeyer's not going, but they say that she is just getting ready for the season, that she isn't too injured that she can't play, which also lends itself to the question of, will this happen more in the future? Like, she's practicing with Ottawa, but she's opting to not play for Team Canada, which is interesting. Or not even go. Like, there's 3 goalies. She could go and just not play, but she wants to stay back. Ambrose is still hurt from the last series. They left Rattray off the roster, and they left Eldridge, which I thought was interesting. I thought she has been playing well. And Fillier's not going. So there's seems to be a lot of newer ones in there because of the injuries too.
Well, that'll be interesting. You got two people who can really put the puck in the net who are not, in the lineup for Canada, which is, interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I that gritty style that those forwards play is always, Eldridge, who didn't used to be gritty. I give her a lot of credit, actually. She used to be just pure skill. And now she's kind of becoming more of a power forward. And obviously Rattray's got that under wraps. But I still think that's something that, when you look at some of the American players like Rock and Carpenter, and like just their physicality on the wall. I was watching some old video clips I had from the Olympics of those wall battles and how much time the US is willing to keep the puck on the wall and just keep it until, they find one of their Ds jumping down or they find someone in the slot. It's
interesting.
It's
I don't know. I certainly don't notice that. I mean, you talk a lot about defending pucks off the wall and winning wall battles. And to me, I have not noticed that with them, but they do have a lot of puck possession time. So I'll have to watch for that.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think like a lot of their power play stuff now runs around the rim, like perimeter more and looking for those opportunities. But yeah, ever since I forget which coach it was, I think it was Dallas Eakins said like 80% of the game is on the wall in the NHL level. And now when you watch, like even I'm watching practices, I'm watching team scrimmage, like he's not wrong. There's so much stuff out there. And so, but I think, like in the NHL and then certainly with the women as well, the highlight reels we all see are some, majestic end-to-end rush or, some breakaway we make, but those plays are more, the outliers. So I don't know. I'm sad I'm not going to the game tonight, but I have some players on my team that are going, but yeah, I'll definitely be, as you know, Sammy, it's going to be 3-2, 5-4 in overtime. we already know what's going to be happening here. Like it's not going to be a 0-0 going to the third here, probably.
No, it's been interesting. The last two games I feel like have been tight, and then the Americans pull away. Like Canada hasn't seemed to be that same team in the first two games, but they're still tight regardless. Like even if the Americans are pushing. So you're right. It'll probably be close. And because they're in Canada, I think that extra sort of oomph that the crowd can provide hopefully will spur them on.
But we're only 2 years into this, like the Olympic cycle, right? So they're still in the tryout period for the new players,
yeah,
right?
So that's what I like about Canada bringing these younger players. So like Sophie Jakes is back too. Like she didn't have a great first two games, but they kept her around, which in past Hockey Canada iterations, as we know, that might not have happened. So the fact that she, they're working with her, they're trying to develop her, they see her potential. So that's good. The last roster at the last series was the average age was like 28 or something. So I'm glad they brought in some younger ones to just see. But even people like they brought back Lauren Gable, who can put the puck in the net, to see what she can do at that level. Again, Jennifer Gardner, who's been like lighting up the NCAA, is there too. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see these young ones, what they can do, although Gable's 26, but.
That's still young compared to all of us on the call, Sammy. So it's all relative.
Yes,
Jake's
or
is
young
special,
compared to the players, the veterans, like Fast and Rock and those guys. So
but Jake's is a lot like, I mean, you hate to compare these players and like they're so amazing, but like she has a lot of similar offensive abilities as Ambrose, right? Like her potential to maybe be the quarterback on the power play, right? Like she has a next level offensive ability. Obviously she has to be able to defend, but I'm hopeful they give her a lot of chances. I've known her forever, but she does have some power play talents that we
I
know.
also like that she's a civil engineer, which I mean, if you're an engineer, you're good in my books. So
there you go. Well, you'd probably have a pretty good team if you had all the engineers out there. They'd be smart.
Right?
Yeah, they'd certainly be smart.
Okay, well, that's great insights. Now. Wally has his hand up, so let's go over to Wally.
Yeah, I've really got a different outlook. I'm not following that level of hockey much, and I was a big part of it. But Sam, it's you guys are in the business now of hockey, not the process of development. And so when you talk about this player coming in and that player coming in, and how do you pick a team and who's going to beat who, I think that's what we're in. It's a business now. There's no development process. Coaches don't have time to teach and train and monitor. It's sort of going to be. I go back to our centralization days, Sami, and I know, having written the curriculum for um, the women's team in its infant stage and revising it in 2007, I only focused on how can we get better and what do we need to do. So when Kim talked about Iceland, and she's talking about D-zone cover and talking about the outcome and looking forward to who they play and how they do, I'm more into how are you making them better to do what they need to do. And that's my mindset still in the pro league. Is there are a lot of things that aren't being taught because they quite simply don't have time to get them together to teach them in a big fashion. They're going to come in like the pros, um, who have very good coaches, hired skills coaches, and tactically get very, very good. But at this level, it ends up being short term when you do get a team together, and it's all people being new, uh, trying to be their best at what they are.
Well, Wally, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by the pro league coaches because, I mean, as you know, I lost my job to this pro league, so there's still some hurt and some difficulty for me to move forward. But what I do like is that they hired Howie Draper, they hired Carla McLeod, they hired Courtney Castle, people that are about the development of the person, the player, the individual. We've all heard from these people. I mean, we know that that's could be really great. So with only a 24 game schedule in the pro league, Wally, I think they will have time for all of this. So maybe it won't happen at the national team level anymore because there isn't time. But I friends that are playing for Howie Draper that have never played for him before, seem really excited that this is suddenly they're valued as a person. All these things that we always talk about that he's able to implement at the pro level is pretty awesome. That they went out of the norm. Now, I don't like that these coaches are still on retainer with their U Sports team, like they're kind of playing both sides right now. So they only have a 1-year deal and they just took a leave of absence. But hopefully good coaches are coaching good players. And I know for Kim and I, when we played pro, that wasn't always the case because they weren't paying coaches at that level. So I'm glad that at least they have full-time coaches that are of a certain ilk.
They have a degree of expertise, technically and ethically. Great coaches. I agree with you, and I never really thought of that. I'm thinking more of the national team. Eventually, it's going to go to the Olympics, and where are they going to be? So I think the pro league, over time, hopefully, it does what the NHL has done. It just makes all players better to play at the level that they do play at when they get to the Olympics, if they do. So
it might mean, though, there might not be centralization anymore. There might not be camps.
I don't expect that. Yeah. Listen, Kim, I want to get to the point. I don't know your situation, but I imagine it's similar to what I faced in Japan, playing against teams that were much better. And I'm listening to you talk and how excited you are about what you're doing and what you have to do. And I've done that for a few generations and been through the frustration of playing a team you had no hope of competing with, but you still had to try to do better. But I did learn an awful lot about playing without the puck. And a little bit of advice for you if you do play really good teams is consider penalty killing with 5 until there's a free puck and then do the rodeo thing. If you try to play conventional D zone cover like we did against having to play the states and whatnot, the outcomes would have been way worse. And the biggest result I got in coaching in those situations was penalty kill with 5. And I don't know if you remember, Kim and Sami, and I'm sure you don't because you were players, but we taught the strategy of making sure you finish your check on the player in your zone before the hash marks, not allow them to wheel up the wall because we were playing big ice. So that.
Wally, what do you mean by penalty kill with 5?
Well, what I mean is you shrink, no pressure. In the Olympics, when we pulled our goalie and won that game, I said the last thing said was penalty kill with 5. They had 6. Don't be overly aggressive and try to play conventionally. Be conscious of being on the D side, having busy sticks, waiting for that puck to turn over before you went and attempted to pressure. So even in some of the conversations I've had with coaches who coach at a fairly high level, they penalty kill with 5 means you've got 5 literally goaltenders filling all the shooting lanes, covering all the passing lanes. When you're 5-on-3, you have 3 goaltenders filling all the shooting lanes and the passing lanes. But if you think the player skill discrepancy is going to be able to play conventional, I've had great success with penalty kill with 5, really passive penalty killing against the Oval team when I coached the senior team that Tom coached in Strathmore, and we were able to beat them one game, which was quite amazing given the skill discrepancy. But it's, we had to play against the Soviets in my day. So did we learn how to play D zone? Yes, we did. And so everything that we did, I continue to work on with minor hockey kids, and it's pretty simple. A teaching point on D zone cover 1-on-1 is keep your toe caps facing the puck. Don't turn them because when you turn, they're going to whip back the other direction. And toe cap square is Dave King's key teaching point that has so much value today when you're pressuring 1-on-1. But anyway, I'm glad you guys are on, but I sent out a topic yesterday, and Al Ramsey is on.
Amazing. I'm all done anyways with my questions, so thank you. That was great.
Sami, are those games televised live? How do we access them? Because
yeah, they're on TSN. So tonight's game, I'm pretty sure starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's also on the NHL Network in the States for anybody down there. So I'm going to be on with Megan Duggan is my co-host tonight, which is fun. Little American perspective.
Really good. Anyway, I just want to turn the wheel back. Sami, what's the oldest minor hockey you've coached?
Like as a goalie coach or as a head coach?
As a head coach.
U9.
Was it whole ice?
No. That's not true. We played tournaments that were whole ice, but we didn't know that we were about to play whole ice.
Okay.
But it was majority half ice.
Kim, what's the youngest age you've coached whole ice hockey in?
U9.
And you've coached U11, U9, U13, and up the ladder?
I coached all of it. I went all the way up the ladder and I'm down.
All the way back.
At the best part.
Even old ladies she coaches.
Yep.
Ladies,
well,
yeah.
Here's my question, and I think everybody faces it. To me, power play is a disadvantage at U13, U11, U9. It's a disadvantage. Obviously, players don't have the skills. You might have some great players who can score on the power play and who coaches use to play the power play. So my big concern is That's all they do. They just throw out their best players all the time. And I've discovered that the other players don't get to play very much. And I've had to deal with that. So the ethical nature of trying to win the game in minor hockey and not give kids a chance to participate in the power play is my biggest concern, let alone execute, have the skills to possess, see the ice, move the puck, and get a scoring chance on the power play. I'm not even sure. I've seen really good power plays in U15, but Al Ramsey's on. He's got a pretty high level U12 team in Boston. Very good offensively. He's a very creative type coach. Tom last year coached U13, got to the city final at the Division 3 with it. And I know he works on power play, and he's got a U15 team this year. So the topic was, how do you get some use of power play? My concern is more letting everybody play, but in a way that they can be functional, purposeful, and the team isn't destroyed because nobody gets to play the power play at that young age. So, Al, I'm going to throw it at you. Where are you at on power plays? How do you deal with it? Where do you start? And then, Sami, if you can think back to your U9 and Kim, any team you've coached at those ages, U15 or lower, go ahead, Al.
I don't know if I'm a real good one to speak on that topic, Wally, but I guess just in terms of what we've done with it, to go to back up a little bit, we started the season talking a lot about defensive play, because everybody loves the offensive play. Defensive play is where we kind of struggled from the start of the year. So what we had been, I guess, loosely working on is kind of like a box plus one approach, so the kids all know what that means when we've got roles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we've done a lot of zone play where we'll take away the plus one, so now it's just the box, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, which is penalty killing, because they struggle with those roles, the traditional winger roles up high, mid to high in the zone kind of thing, and being disciplined there and not chasing the puck. So we haven't really done anything specific to the power play where we talk about like a power play, like set plays and things like that. It's more just, it opens up more ice. So we play the same way that we do. We don't have any power play lines or anything like that. It's just the next kids go, whatever. Same thing for penalty killing. And it's just this, we play the game the same way that we would normally, just we get a little bit more ice to work with. That's the way I've approached it anyway. I haven't done anything specific to power play with them yet. Now, mind you, we're still working on other stuff. Yeah. In my mind, that's a smaller thing that we need to work on. We need to work on possessing the puck and making plays in the offensive zone. We need to work on a defensive zone positioning and working on right now I got full ice for the last 3 or 4 weeks. We've been working on rush. It's the first full ice practices I think I've ever had in my minor hockey coaching. So.
Well, I just want to mention, I believe, at the ages I mentioned, U13 and lower, the 5 go out. You have one more player than them, outnumber them. Rely on your offensive ability, possess, protect, and move the puck, breathe the ice, and see the ice. But there's a point where they may need a little bit of structure that will help you. But they're not skilled enough to play a conventional structured power play. And they're learning to develop their individual skills to where they can be more effective. But
yeah, Wally, we're still at the point where we're trying to get them to move the puck from low to high and to the middle of the ice to open up space, right? Yeah. Let alone trying to work on set power play structure.
Kim, go ahead.
Thanks, Wally. I'm at U9, so we're still half ice for a couple more weeks, and then we go full ice. But I did full ice last year, and similar to Al, we definitely aren't setting up anything on the power play. There are teams we play against that when they get a power play, they do put out their best 5 players, no question. We do not do that. and everyone gets a chance. But for us right now, there is no power play structure. It's the same structure. We always have 2 around the puck. We always have 2 in the train tracks. And then we allow that next player to be creative. So, right now in the 4-on-4 half ice structure, having, 2 close to the puck and 2 in the train tracks, whether it's offensive or defensive, actually makes us look like we really know how to play hockey. So it's actually quite like, everyone's like, oh, you've been teaching them like, where to stand, and that's all we tell them, and it looks pretty good. And so I guess when we get to power play, well,
can you explain that? If I don't quite understand it, I just want to be sure. Are you talking half ice here?
half ice, but we would do the same thing full ice. So
Okay.
right now we're half ice 4-on-4.
When you say 2 on the puck, I say possession overrides position. Outnumber them. That makes sense. 2 on the puck.
Yeah. So
we say 2 in the train tracks. The train tracks I've only used as a forecheck concept. You're using.
Oh no, Wally, it's an always concept.
Okay, good. Elaborate on that.
Okay, so the train tracks, just to explain. So if you take like the center ice circle, not the dot, but the circle, and you drew straight lines from end wall to end wall through those lines, that would be what I would call the train tracks. And so no matter where the puck is, in the offensive zone, in the defensive zone, we always want to have 2 players in the train tracks. Now, we're a little bit more specific about where those 2 players in the middle of the ice want to be, but you can imagine if we're in the offensive zone and the puck is in the corner and we've got possession, we want 1 player in front of the net, and we want 1 player probably higher up in the zone, not by the blue line because we can't shoot from there, but maybe by the hash marks at the top of the circles. Those would be the 2 players inside the train tracks. We don't script exactly where they need to go, but we work on different plays and passing plays that kind of give them an idea of it. And then we've got a puck carrier in the corner. And this is still 4-on-4. We call it the backpack player. So the player who's really close, 2 stick lengths away, who's there to support the puck carrier, because at our level, people tend to overpressure the puck carrier. So the chances of her losing the puck are somewhat high. And so we have that second player there in case she needs help. She's got a little short passing option. When we go to 5-on-5, if you imagine that same puck in the corner, we would still have the backpack player, the close support. We would still have 2 players in the train tracks. You would just add, that player up on the point on the strong side. So you'd have 3 on the strong side. But it's we use it offensively, and then of course we use it defensively as well. So when the bad guys have the puck in our defensive corner, we've got 2 around the puck. We call them hunters. We have 2 hunters, and then we've got 2 in the train tracks. 1 close to the net, and the other one probably a little bit higher. So that's the majority of our right now. And so I can think, if we were in a power play structure and the puck came to the net, we would always have 2 relatively close to the net. So that would be pretty good. I watch a lot of high level power plays that have no one in front of the net when the shot is taken. So maybe we could get some traction with the train tracks, but we're not teaching anything specific when we get to power play. And quite honestly, at U9, so much of the scoring happens off the rush, and then puck recovery, and then another play to the net. It's a speed it up game, not really a slow it down game at that level. So we might be able to change that. But
Jim, you're saying a lot of things I know Tom has talked about. The first thing Tom has done at U13, I think it's U15, number 1, try to score on the rush. They're trying to teach them to go in there and set up in a structure. And the idea of taking advantage of the rush, outnumbering, and then after that, sustaining possession, what you've said, score on the rush. Kim, can you elaborate now at U11, U13, because I do want to get into what Tom is facing and going through, Al is evolving into, and what the U15s are experimenting with. My main dilemma, Kim, is one team puts its best players out in the power play. The other team puts out its best players to challenge it. So you have 4 players at least that don't see the ice for 6 to 10 minutes, depending on consecutive penalties. It's destroying the culture that I've been trying to advocate for our association at the U13 level. And it's causing me great stress. But in any way.
But does anyone have any oversight of the coaches at that level? Like, is there an organizational,
Well,
this is how we do things?
Trying to deal with it, and I'm in the middle of trying to deal with it, to the point where I'm not sure I'm capable of dealing with it. So we'll let that be, because it's another area of my role as a mentor, trying to convince an association to suddenly let whoever's up play the power play, let who's ever up play the PK. That's impossible at the U13 level with the teams I'm observing play, because they do have such outstanding ringers, and they're growing up in associations that know who the ringers are. And if they're not out there, you're not trying to win. It's not elite hockey, they say.
Well, I think the other piece of that too, Wally, is if you have those superstars and they're not getting that time, then they, at least here in the GTA, in Toronto, they're going to go somewhere else. I mean, we have no residency rules. So if we have some blue chip players at those top levels, they may perceive that like they're the best, and so they should be out on the first power play. Now, I know for us at every level below U13 AA, which is our highest level at those age groups, our coaches roll the power plays. And I do remember a specific conversation I had with our U13 AA head coach last year about having power play units. And it might have been around this time of the year, could have been a little bit earlier, maybe a little bit later, but she had sort of been rolling everybody and then was feeling this immense pressure, obviously from the parents, to designate some units so that they could have, more success with those opportunities. So, I talked her through it and some strategies I've used to, even if you do go to having some units, you at least in practices and in game situations have to give people opportunity to fill in on those units or get some time. Because what I see as a problem is coaches sort of anoint the top 5 and they have those top 5 practice, but they never put the other kids in to see if they actually might work better. Like sometimes putting the top 5 together is everybody wants the puck. No one wants to pass. They all think they're the best player. So it actually might not work as well as, a different 5 might be. I remember one year I was coaching junior and when we had our best team ever, and a player who you probably, if you watched her, you would have said she was our 9th or 10th forward, became our net front person on the power play because she was great at recovering pucks and getting it to everyone else. But she wasn't in the top 5, like a 0% chance she was in the top 5. So that's, I think, a little bit of coach's ego, parents' ego, players' ego obviously is coming into play here. But also that idea that, one of my hardest things to do as a coach is picking who plays with who. Like who's going to be a line, who's going to be the power play. Like,
can I just want to interrupt you because I've got a train of thought here that I want to get this message out to the public. You're talking about, the 10th forward or the got to play the power play, succeeded. They're labeling, ranking players to draft them.
Well, that's U22 elite, Wally. I think at that level you have
I'm talking
you're rating players.
I'm talking CIS. The Ottawa men's team, which was recreated because it was suspended for 3 years. And I was brought in to watch and mentor the coach. He asked me about what to do on power play. They were playing teams much better than him. He had lost all his veteran players except 3 that played in the OHL. I said, play everybody, and the only drill is scrimmage and keep one out of the zone or two out of the zone. He did. That was the way he coached because he had players, all rookies. They played everything. And he won the game against the top team in the league that he played the next weekend, the weekend I was there. A player came up to him from the OHL, said, I never played on the power play for 4 years in the OHL. I had a goal and an assist on the power play tonight. So that's my point here. Here we are labeling kids and not giving them opportunities to experience and feel confident that they're capable of it. And at the college level, I witnessed this. So I preach, give everybody a chance. Is it equal? No, but it has to be fair. And in minor hockey right now, the biggest problem I've got to deal with at U13 is the best players. They're really noticeable. They may not be out there that more often, but when I have parents complain about their kids not getting to play, it's legitimate. And I think that's really undermining the essence of development and the long-term process of winning it at the next level or any level. So it's the same with Kim with her team Iceland. She's going to have a power play and people on the penalty kill. Now, I'm not talking about that. She wants a respectable income or a respectable outcome. But if you coach for outcomes and don't have a process to achieve the outcome that includes minor hockey, everybody, then you're like, I'm wasting my time. And that's what I'm trying to deal with right now. But Kim, go ahead, because we'll get into what Tom has learned and done. And I'm sure Rick with his junior team, and anybody can chime in here anytime. Sami, you can chime in about the National Women's Program and its power play. We eventually decided on 10 and 10 power play people, 10 penalty kill people.
I just want to add something to the minor hockey conversation quickly before I have to depart, but that at the U7 and U9 level, that penalties can be really hard on kids, and don't forget to explain what they are to kids too. I'm sure Kim has had this on her team, but like girls like in tears because they felt like they let the entire team down. And in girls hockey, girls don't tend to watch much hockey, so they don't know really what the game is all about. So we as coaches, I mean, we are disseminated everything. In my first year, I forgot to explain what the penalties were and what it meant, and that this girl had to go sit by herself in the corner, and she was just devastated. So don't forget that in minor hockey, that it can be very hard, you know. So anyways, I just wanted to add
Lots
that.
of tears. Lots of tears, Sami. Lots of tears, except for my kid, who's like so excited when she gets a penalty. The apple did not fall far from the tree here. And actually, my 5-year-old is a menace. I thought nothing. My 7-year-old is like full body on body, stealing pucks off kids. And my 5-year-old thinks her stick is like for chopping trees down. I'm a bit horrified, but I didn't show her it. I promise you. I was not sure what happened. But Wally, one thing I would say is, you know, coaches need to run drills in practices that offer a potential reward for players in a game. So if I'm running power play at practice, let's say I'm just doing it in my regular 5-man units or whatever I've decided on, you know, you can give a carrot to the players and say, whichever power play does the best in practice, you're going to get to start the first power play of the next game. So whether that's, you know, whichever power play unit gets the most shots on net, whichever power play unit scores the most goals or has the longest possession. And then you might have a, you know, more superstar unit who's just not getting it done that day in practice, or, you know, isn't delivering on the things that you really want to see. And then maybe a unit who doesn't have as much skill on it might get a really cool opportunity because of the hard work they're doing in practice and their execution in practice. So what I often think is, you know, we pick these units and then we don't actually have any data in the short term about how well they're going to do in a game because they just haven't had enough power plays together yet. And so you almost have to use your practice data to figure out who is actually doing the best and then reward players for doing that. And I've done the same thing with PK as well. And actually in girls hockey, years ago when I was coaching U15, I was always curious. I felt like a lot of girls shy away from being on the power play. Kind of like no one wants to take a shootout shot at the end of the game. They all like shrink into the bench, like they don't exist. And so I actually asked my players, if you could only pick one special team to be on, power play or penalty kill, which one would you pick? And it was anonymous. And 75% of them picked PK, which meant I actually didn't have enough players for a power play. I didn't know who they were because it was anonymous, but it spoke to their mindset. And then that was an interesting tidbit to share with the parents who are all getting up in my space about, well, Sally should be on the power play. And I'm like, I don't know if Sally put her hand up for power play because it was anonymous, but 75% of them said they'd prefer to be on the PK. So obviously that's a confidence issue probably more than anything else, but I think there's things we can do away from the actual game situation to empower the players and have them think about it differently.
Sorry to interrupt you again, but the train of thought here, I'm talking Bob Murdoch and the Winnipeg Jets and what you're talking about. Kids don't play the power play. They don't feel good about it. They don't get confident to play it. How soon do they lose confidence and belief in themselves to try it? Well, Bob Murdoch, all units played the power play. He was coach of the year that year. His fourth line unit was a grander power play, probably what a minor hockey power play should be at the U13 and U community levels and the U11 levels. Outwork, outnumber, outpossess, and score. And maybe the third line 50-50'd that with a little structure, while the second and first might have been structured. The result of what he did, building that team spirit, won him coach of the year. Now, of course, like all coaches, he got fired. What I don't like about minor hockey coaches is they're being turned over more often than some paid coaches, because this dilemma of not getting the results and the pressure coming from the outside to where coaches have to win, feel they have to win, they're getting forced to do things. They could stand up to it independently and say, no, it's not my philosophy. And it actually isn't the philosophy of our association. Yet it's being violated. And I've reached the point now where I'm not sure about what to do about it. But Kim, I'm going to ask Tom, because he did U13 girls, and the group that I'm working with now, I've got a dilemma. I went on the bench in the playoff game to decide who would. I had to go on the bench to remind coaches to play all players more often, because there were players who never saw the ice. The winner of that game was going to go to the Alberta Winter Games representing Calgary. And of course, throughout the playoff between the three teams, you saw the power play people. Some players sat, didn't play much. It wasn't noticeable. But once I heard players commit, I had to address it. My role, paid role, is to mentor. My philosophy was the mission statement exercise and the process of development at 11 and 12 years old. That's what I wanted to reinforce. So, Tom, you're at the U15 level, but you were at U13. And Kim, please feel free to chime in on anything that's on your mind, because this is what we're going through with in female hockey right now, in the trenches. Tom, can you talk a bit about last year and the difference to this year, how you started to teach it, what you would teach, what's worked, everybody playing, when they're playing? Go ahead.
Well, last year we just rolled it and everybody played the power play, but I introduced them to the low spread. So it's like 5 on a dice. So what we did is we got the puck behind the net and went side to side and then passed the player in front. And the player that passed across would move in front too. We had a lot of success on it because, people turn their backs, and we practiced a lot of getting a pass and shooting quick. Now this year, we started rolling with everybody, but Jim, who does the power play, really frustrated because he didn't get anybody long enough to really be able to do it. Where you were using a 1-3-1 and the low press or low spread. So what we've done now is we have 2 power play units and the others kill penalties. And we did that for a month. And next week, we start the other 7 that weren't playing the power play are all on the power play. Of course, 3 where we'll be on that. And the players not on the power play will kill penalties from that. So everybody's playing the power play, but we're distributing it so that we can actually work on it, and give them more time. And, and they do pretty good at it. And, we have a power play breakout, and this kind of stuff was pretty simple. Just 3 swing down low, and 2 are up in the neutral zone, 1's high and 1 kind of in the middle. But yeah, we just have everybody playing, but not all at the same time. And then what we said is come February, we're going to see who was the best at it, and we'll end up with 2 power play units and the others killing penalties. So everybody's getting the opportunity to, to do it. So, and we do that Bob Johnson power play game where 1 player goes in and forces, sometime 2, and the game you talked about with 1 player in the neutral zone. And there's also a really good sequence I saw the Flames do that. You practice power play, then you dump it down, you break out, but 4 penalty killers jump out and you kill against them. And while the puck's at that end, the next group goes out and works 5-0 the options. So that's how we go about our power play.
Kim, Tom is able to accomplish that. The degree of structure, he's made it work. Basically, that spread power play below the goal line, it's a triangle below the goal line with the F3 in the slot. And it works at that age level because everybody puck focuses and they don't cover that slot.
Well, it works in the NHL when they use it.
Yeah.
They go side to side with it, back. The D can sneak in. NHL players are always turning their back too.
Yeah.
Stuff below the goal line is one of the most common ways to score in the NHL because people lose track of people because they don't have the right body position. They don't have the man-u puck triangle going. They're watching the play. So that's why that works really well.
So, Tom, I think what you've done is brilliant because most people, they would go to the umbrella, puck up high, not a 1-3-1 necessarily, where everybody faces the puck. And below the net, when you run the power play from below the net, people get open up behind because they're puck focused. I think that's brilliant. I saw it work 5-on-5 for you because at the U13 level last year. So, Kim, does this sound too complex or too much at the U13 level? It works for Tom, but not every coach has his experience of being able to teach it and do it with that age group.
I don't think it's too complicated from a conceptual standpoint or a tactical standpoint, like to draw it out and explain it and have players understand it. I think is very doable. To have the skills, the ability to pass at the right width or the right weight at the right time through the right opening, I think is something that needs to be cultivated a lot more, especially in the female game. That idea of arriving on time and kind of getting lost a little bit so that you're not covered by a defender. Obviously, that's easier to do on the power play than it is on the penalty kill. But that's where a little bit I think, and this is a very, I can see this being very successful. I've used this type of attack before at these age groups. I think sometimes, and Tom obviously isn't doing this, but sometimes we go pure skill, and then we've got our power play system or the structure that you've sort of described here, but we haven't really filled in the middle of understanding what a passing lane is and isn't, what a quick release shot off a east-west pass or north-south pass, what, shot selection, pass selection. So I think it's kind of filling in those gaps. That is the hard part, because I know with the girls, if you tell them to stand here and do this, they're going to stand here and do this. And that's valuable when you've got structure. But given that hockey is a sport of chaos and invasiveness and mistakes, we've got to fill in those gaps so they understand why they're making the pass they're making, not just because Tom said so. And I'm sure Tom's doing that, but I would hope all the coaches listening can understand that, because just drawing it on the board and saying, well, the puck goes here to here to here, a lot of girls, if you're telling them the puck's got to go east-west below the goal line, and then there's a checker there, they actually freeze up because they don't know what to do and they don't have enough hockey IQ developed to figure out what's the next best play or how to recreate a different passing lane or shooting lane. So that would be my advice to those listening. The structure will work, but they have to understand, the when and the why and the how, and have the fundamental skills. I think of that power play or that structure and going, well, that's going to work really, really well if all the players are receiving it on their forehand, like you said, are opened up to it or square to the puck, understand how to do a quick release shot. But as soon as someone touches it on their backhand or gives a bad target, it starts to fall apart, right? So, those are my thoughts. But certainly below the goal line attacks out to the front of the net at our level it's almost impossible for the goalie to stop. But certainly as you move up in the levels, it can still, even when I coached U18, AA, there was still a lot of teams that were get it deep, work it low, and throw it at the front of the net. I wouldn't say it worked incredibly well, but it did put a good amount of pressure on us defensively. So I think that strategy is being employed quite a bit in the female game, but not to a great degree of success sometimes because the players don't understand where the passing lane is or how to be puck ready in order to actually get effective shots through.
That's why that Bob Johnson game is a really good way to work on it. That the power play unit's in there and you send in one defender for 10 seconds to just go as hard as they can. And then, you blow the whistle, another goes in and the first one doesn't leave till they get there. Because that does put some pressure on the puck and they have to think a little and, be available and all these kind of things.
Oh, yeah, I love that drill.
I agree with you.
Kim, the point here's my point, and you made the point. You said figure it out. They have to figure it out. So you provide structure on forecheck, on D zone, then they got to figure it out. Structure is just a framework which shifts and adjusts according to the situation. Letting them think and figure it out is what hockey's all about. So telling them, overstructuring, girls and boys will do what the coach tells them to do, to the point of not having hockey sense. So,
and I think the exclamation point on that is, and then when it does work, when they do figure it out, you highlight to them and the whole group why that worked. Right. And so you're trying to develop pattern recognition in these players. So if that low to high pass to a quick one-timer goes in on the far side, to actually stop the group and say, okay, here's why this worked. It's not just luck. You didn't just, the goalie wasn't napping. This pattern will work consistently because of X, Y, and Z. Whereas we often approach it from the other way. They make a bad pass or they make a bad decision and we say, well, don't do this because this isn't good or whatever. So, highlighting their achievements when things go well and emphasizing that, I think, is a really, really critical point, as opposed to don't do this and don't do this and don't make that pass. Because again, as Sami said earlier in the call, girls aren't necessarily watching as much of the NHL highlights, or hopefully the PWHL highlights when they start coming on TV. You know, they're not seeing a lot of these patterns over and over again, night in and night out, by watching 3 hours of NHL hockey. And so we really do have to capture them in the moment, and, you know, maybe even using the video and saying, here's some of our best goals from around the net. And you'll see every single time we made pass X, Y happened, and we scored on every single one. And the girls really feed off of that, to be able to see it and understand that pattern over and over. So that would be, you know, another piece is being able to use a little bit of video and showing them success. With the girls, it's like worth its weight in gold, right? They're only going to see like what they did wrong, or they turned the wrong way, or my ponytail looks weird, right? But if you can show them highlights of them doing it right and explaining why that is right, I think that's really, really important. Power play, 5-on-5, whatever you're teaching. But I got to jump off, guys, because we're in the middle of moving. So I'm not going anywhere exciting, but I should probably move some boxes around. So it was good to see everyone again.
Kim, thanks.
Good to hear from you, Kim.
Thanks, guys. All the best. Happy holidays.
I got to tell you about this weekend. We're playing in Red Deer. So it's all over the province. So the South team played 3 North teams and vice versa, you know, to save on some travel. So we played the best team from Edmonton, and they're coached by an ex-Oiler, and his daughter is really good. So her and her line mate are leading the league by so much, it's unbelievable. The one girl's averaging 3 points a game. And they play half the game. They play 28 minutes each, the game we play them. And they work together doing scissors and give and goes, and like it's a totally different game going on. But they beat us 4-3, and we outplayed them overall. But this one girl, she shoots rockets. She shoots like a midget AAA boy. And she's a big girl and with good skills. But that kind of goes to that point of playing your best players all the time. And if you've got exceptional players, it's, you know, it's a real challenge for your team to be able to handle them. So just thought I'd throw that in there.
Tom,
And then we've been having some trouble scoring. So
that's a
we're
good
playing
point.
a weaker team.
Yeah.
We're playing a weaker team. And we didn't get our first goal until we got 30 shots. So we ended up winning 4-1. We got 61 shots, or 4-0. I mean, sorry. But scoring goals is always a challenge for the girls, for sure. Too bad, yeah, Rick never got to talk there. Too bad.
Yeah, I wanted to ask him about his team and how he adapts at power play and PK.
Well, Hell's on here, Wally.
Yep, Hell, go ahead.
He's got some stuff.
You've heard most of it, and you've been through it before many times, many generations of players. Where are you at now?
Hi, good morning. Sorry, every other week I have a business call I'm on for about an hour and a half. I think this is, you know, I spent an hour yesterday with a high school varsity and JV talking to them about, I mean, they went, they won their first 2 games, they lost their last 3. And they've gotten totally outplayed in the second period of the games they've lost, and they lose them by a goal. And I went in to talk to them without the coaches. They were back in the coaches' locker room. And, you know, this whole issue, I appreciate what Kim was saying. I've got the same issue with my peewees. I think they know what they want to do and what they should do, but their skills betray them a little bit. And I think we have to be careful, those of us that have played and or coached at very high levels, having sometimes unrealistic expectations on execution of younger kids whose brains haven't formed totally yet. And, you know, they're not high level athletes. They're just kids trying to do the best they can. Same thing with high school. One of the questions I asked them, and I've done this before, what are you afraid of? And like any lawyer who asks a question, you already know the answer, but you're trying to elicit it out of the group. And I got the standard answer is I'm afraid to make a mistake that costs us a goal. But there's another answer that I was searching for, and that was, why won't forwards get in front of the net? They'll get off to the side and face the shooter, but they won't get in front very often, even on a rush. If you're playing a center drive, the puck's coming up the outside with speed. And the answer is, finally, one of the kids said, I don't want to get hit in the head with the shot. And then I saw their heads go up and down like this. Yep. And so, that's a real fear that they have. So as coaches, we're always trying to get the kids in front, take the goalie's eyes. But the kids, they understand that. They understand English or Canadian. And but they don't do it because they're afraid they're going to get hurt, or their teammate's going to hit them in the head with a big heavy shot that's coming in head high. And so we had a conversation about how can we make this work so as a team we can score more goals. And of course the answer is if we're going to shoot, we've got to shoot lower. And we might have to pull off a little bit because the object is to get the puck into the crease area. And if it doesn't go into the goal, then you have a teammate that has the opportunity to tip it or knock it in, or you get something to happen. So this is the fascinating part about this game is, in my opinion, is those of us who have been doing this forever, we have all this knowledge, but getting the knowledge into the players and in a meaningful way so that they can learn and grow with it is the super challenging part, in my opinion. And having great coaches, I was talking with the coach of our girls team this morning, who's a good friend of mine, and he sends out the practice plan the night before. And one of his players recently told him, they said, Coach, you're the first coach that's ever done this, and I super appreciate it because I'm dyslexic. And I need time to look at it before I come to the rink so I know exactly what we're going to do. And if you draw it on the whiteboard, I have no clue what you're talking about. So, again, reinforcing some of these things that coaches can do that make the little things that can make a big difference. They skate 90 minutes. A coach tells me he thinks those kids get at least 60 minutes of on task in a practice, violating the 3-to-1 rest to work ratio. But they're always moving. These kids are always moving in practice and doing something that actually matters. So back to the Pee-wees, we're making great progress with our kids, but mostly skill-based stuff. But they're getting better. Their structure's good. It's just their passing skills betray them. But then again, fear. We've got a couple younger kids, and I talked to them, and I finally said to them, they're 4 foot something. I don't know how, they're 4'5" or 4'6", and they're playing against kids that are 6 feet. I said, maybe you don't want to catch the puck? And they kind of smiled. There's 2 twin brothers. That's yeah, because there's fear. They're afraid. They're going to get lit up. They're getting better. They're now becoming more physical themselves, and they're now learning how to handle themselves. But as coaches, I think we have to be patient, and we have to take the time to understand what's in their heads before we can just start pounding stuff in them. So that's my deal for today. I hope it was helpful.
Hal, you mentioned the word fear, I had a coach at University, Cease Eves. He's the grandfather of the Eves that played and coached in the NHL. And when you talk about, we don't talk about fear at that level, fear at the NHL.
Right.
But I was always fearful about playing poorly, about not winning.
Yep.
And he took fear and embraced the word at the very competitive levels. He said it's positive apprehension. It's a good thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that.
And those two words I just shared with the U16 coaches interviewing a player yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
The word fear just happened to come up in the interview conversation.
Yeah.
Of course, just like this moment, I jumped on it and tried to make the point that it's a good thing. Now, in your case, recognizing it in good is good. You know it's there. Some coaches may not even think it's there, but by accepting it, embracing it, and teaching how to deal with it
Yep.
at your level, how to be lower, how to get inside position,
Yep.
you actually have a physiological
Advantage.
advantage.
Yeah.
So the reality there at the highest level, you don't have to teach as much technically. It'll make you more competitive and be more successful to be better.
Yep.
But that psychological tension that we put on ourselves to win the game, even as a coach, and
Yep.
shorten the bench.
Oh, yeah.
And that brings me to the question that we dealt with earlier here. When you coached, how did you manage the bench and use your best players more often on the power play? Did you not? How do you manage the bench so that everybody's happy and you can have success as a team?
I'll answer that. I wanted us to also say when I talked to the high school boys yesterday that you have hockey is a game that requires a lot of courage because you're going into battle and it's tough, but courage and fear kind of go together. And guys that have a lot of courage. So what is courage? Courage means I'm willing to block shots. I'm willing to accept a role on this hockey team. Because I also asked them the question, every team you've been on, who scores most of the goals? How many players? 3 or 4. Well, then what do the rest of the guys got to do? It's things, everybody's got to have a role in this, in the collective effort so we can win the game. So blocking shots is critical. You block 8 shots, you save a goal against. You take 8 shots, you score a goal on average. What else can you do? You can be physical in the corner. You can be a disruptor. You can be a great penalty killer. So to answer your question, Wally, it's finding the roles and celebrating those other players for their successes and their participation in the success of the team. Whether that doesn't mean they win the game, but maybe it's a very competitive game. And I always make a really big point, and I try to tell other coaches, those third liners clearly aren't first liners, but you got to find a role and you got to embrace them and encourage them and put them in positions where they can have success and they can offer. We did a long time ago with when Jim Johnson was coaching in the American Hockey League for the Lightning, Norfolk, Virginia, and he put together an on-ice effectiveness rating. I think I sent that to you, Wally, a bunch of years ago. And they, going through video, they would give points, positive points and negative points for great plays. So, for instance, if a winger blocks a shot when they're shorthanded, he got 2 points for that. But the D only gets 1 because they're supposed to block shots. It's stuff like that. I mean, you can make up your own metrics, but at the end, everybody gets a score in terms of what their contribution was to the cumulative outcome of the game, to their effort as a team. And it's no different than Tom doing the passing thing. And we've been following his example, and we don't share it with the kids too much, but I did comment to them that in the last game, 2 or 3 of you never made a completed pass in the game. And we need to work on that. So anyways, hope that answers your question. Like Kim, I have to run off to a business meeting here in just a couple of minutes, but sorry I'm late on this week.
Thanks for coming on, Al.
Yeah,
Tom, anything to throw in there?
Well, just yeah, those are all factors, fear and courage and all those kind of things. It's definitely the toughest game there is because of all things, having to skate and a stick in your hand and you get hit and all these kind of things. It's a multi-dimensional kind of problem-solving game, and that's why it's a challenge of coaches to identify with all these kind of things and smooth them out, I guess.
Yep.
Tom, have you, in our day, Hal and Tom, we know what throwing snow is. Fear. You put the brakes on so you don't go in the corner. I've never noticed that in girls hockey. Have you, Tom?
I see them going in and I think, holy jeez, they're going to get killed. Because without the crashing, like Tanev got hit so hard the other day in the Flames game, 15 seconds in, this guy, it should have been boarding.
Yeah.
But he hit him so hard, he's out. And I think it was kind of a whole body concussion. He got hit. So I see the girls, like I got this one little girl, she's 5'2", and she goes right in the middle of all the other team. And I think she's going to get murdered. And she's one of the top Irish dancers in Canada. And somehow she walks through everybody without ever getting touched. And she doesn't do toe drags and all kinds of fancy stuff. She does it all with her legs and head fakes. And I don't think I've ever seen a player that can do this kind of thing.
It's amazing.
And, but there's absolutely no fear there. Because it doesn't matter how big these, and then she takes it off like that big player from Edmonton. She was taking the puck off her. Because she just gets in there into the hands, skates through the hands, and she's such a great skater that she's really effective. So
That's cool. I got to run, boys. We'll see you next week.
Hal.
Yeah,
Good talking to you, Hal.
Yeah, talk to you.
Tom, of all the coaches I've watched, you are one of the few that plays everybody. They feel valued. And you're able in a game to use people properly. They get ice time at the right time. They've earned by their performance in that game. Was that always a part of your coaching, or did you acquire it?
I think I think when I first started coaching, I may play my best players more than I do now. But in all the situations, but I decided, well, Peters used to say, the Bemidji coach, he'd say, you're only as good as your weakest player. So I think during the season, the job is to get everybody that they can get the job done. They're not all going to be goal scorers, but there's a lot of important things that happen in a game. So, and even when I taught, I always did intramurals, and ran the phys ed program, and I asked everybody what they wanted to coach, and people want to coach the senior teams, and I'd take on the junior teams that nobody wanted to coach. So it's kind of been my philosophy the whole time is, everybody should play. And I still have a memory of, I think it was grade 7. And it was the only time I never got to play in a game in my life. We had a whole bunch of players on the junior basketball.
Yeah.
And we played this whole game, and I never got in. And I just thought that was such a rotten thing because I went to practice and all this kind. And I was just a terrible basketball player, and I was absolutely tiny. But I never thought that that was a point of to win a junior boys basketball game isn't that big of a deal.
See, Tom, there's a point when, let's say 11, 12 years old, whole ice hockey. Right now, I believe all the competitive teams, and all teams are competitive, so that's every level. The best players are getting those opportunities, and the other ones are losing confidence. More parents, there are parents who don't speak out if their kids don't play because that's the way it's done. And the game
Well,
now is.
I think the players vote on this, Wally. When we're losing 70% of the players in almost all sports at 14.
Yeah.
So the players, now this is a time they're just going into high school, right?
Yeah.
That's when they vote and they just don't play. Because this guy wrote this book, former NBA basketball player, and it's called Just Let Them Play.
Yeah.
And the ask the kids to rank why they play. And the biggest reason they play is to have fun. And then there's all kinds of things of friendship and all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how much fun do you have sitting not playing? So, and it's been the problem. Like I remember in Little League Baseball, and this was a zillion years ago, it was in the 50s. We were maybe the best baseball Little League team in the city, and we're playing a playoff game, and the ump about 3 times in a row lost the count. And our coach pulled us off the field, and we were eliminated. And that, 6 in my craw today that he thought he was so important, and that it was that important that the count was 2 balls and 1 strike and not 3 balls and 1 strike or something like this.
Wow.
So people can get carried away with things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Tom, I wasn't sure where the session would go. I'm glad Sami came on.
Yeah, we never heard from Rick at all. I would have liked to hear.
Yeah, I might give him a phone call later, and maybe it's a cell phone call. And if I do get him, I might call you, and the 3 of us just talk about what he was dealing with, what he deals with out there. It's a different kettle of fish, that's for sure. But
yeah, it's the kids that didn't make junior, so they pay to play junior.
Yeah.
And I got asked a couple of years ago to coach a team like that in Jasper. They were going to have a team.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't really want to move away from home to do this, but yeah, it's a different concept for sure.
Tom, your grandson played for a global coach in Kindersley. And he ran the ice time 2 days ago with the U15 white team. Well, she did interviews with players on the bench, and I sat in on them. But he really spoke highly of your grandson and his ability and how he was his go-to guy in Kindersley. And I just want
That's good to hear.
Pardon?
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
He's in a bad situation right now because he got to offer a lot from Div 3 schools, and he could have been kind of a spare part at Mount Royal and Sate, I think. They wouldn't guarantee how much ice time. So he went out to Nanaimo to this, I think it's Vancouver Island University or something. They got their league. And now they're talking about folding the team. So they made that commitment to go out there. Their plan was to bring in guys like him and, junior guys and up the program and get into U Sport. just
Yeah.
like Trinity College did, or Trinity University, whatever it's called.
Yes, yeah.
And now it sounds like he'll be back home, I think, next week. I'll talk to him, but or they're talking about folding the team, and now all these guys are kind of hooped.
Okay.
Got to change schools or go there to university, but no hockey. And
Yeah. Well, Tom, between you and me, I have to let you know what's happening with me. It's really been a tough.
you should
2
turn
weeks.
off your recorder then, Wally.
Yeah, I will right now.